the art of conscious living. So conscious living is more than just going through the motions of life. How many have you ever felt that way, like you were just going through the motions? Yeah. I know before I came here, and I came here in 2005, my life was good. I was happy, everything, but I just went from day to day and didn't really concern myself with any big questions or things like that. I just, went to work and did my job and came home and had fun and had a lovely time with I had 4 dogs at that time. But I had a really nice life, but I never really put a lot of thought into anything other than what was happening in my life. It was pretty much self-centered, actually. I was kind and generous and did all that kind of stuff, but I only thought about what was happening to me and how it affected me in my life. Coming to Centers for Spiritual Living has given me a broader perspective on what life actually is and how to move through life a little bit more consciously than I was before. In New Thought, which is what our philosophy is based on, the religion that we practice here, we believe that our thoughts are things. In fact, Ernest Holmes, our founder, has a book called Thoughts Are Things. And we create our experience in life through our thoughts, through our inner dialogue, through our beliefs. Some of those we're not even aware we have, through our intentions. That's how we create the life that we manifest. So if we are going about it in the way that I did before I came here, I had thoughts. Thoughts created things in my life, but I never really put the two together. It was absolutely shocking to me. Honestly, it's such a simple thing, but it was so profound and so shocking to me the first time I ever heard, change your thinking, change your life. To me, that was just like, oh my God, my thoughts and my thinking has something to do with how I'm living my life. It never occurred to me to even think about that. And so in conscious living, we practice several things. We practice being intentional and purposeful, and we become more and more aware of the power that we hold to shape the world that we live in when we go through our life a little more consciously. Okay, there we go. So, conscious living has 4 main components to it. As I said, living intentionally, living purposefully, knowing what you believe about life, about the world, about how things move through our life. That idea of practicing the presence, as David so beautifully illustrated in his song, nearer than the air. No, closer than my hands and feet, nearer than the air. Practicing the presence, feeling that presence of the one as it is moving in and through us in everything that we do. And then the last component is living in alignment with spiritual truth. So let's begin by looking at living intentionally. So this is the starting point of conscious living. This is the starting point when we begin to set an intention for how we want to live our lives. Every year at the beginning of the year, I do an intention setting workshop where we actually have an opportunity to create a little bit more about what we want to do that year. Every year, I do what I call my word of power. And my word of power is an intention that I'm setting for my year this year. Now, you all know that oftentimes when we put something out there, everything that's unlike it shows up. My word for the year is balance. As I walk with my cane and on my walker. Just go figure. So obviously I needed to work on balance, and so Spirit is giving me lots of opportunities to do that. Many people live reactively and respond to the circumstances as they occur, without any forethought about how did I create that? How did I get that into my system, into my consciousness, into my life? What were thoughts were happening around that is causing me to experience that? I'm really looking at this balance thing. I don't know. But imagine if we woke up every day with that clear intention right before us. It's set out there. Last year, my intention was courage. I did not have the opportunities that I've had this year to practice balance when it came to practicing courage, but I felt like I lived a very courageous life. I did things, I stepped outside of my comfort zone in so many different ways and did things that I didn't expect to do. But when we set that intention, we direct our energy, our focus, all of our thoughts towards having that intention become our reality there. It helps us move towards what it is we really want to experience in our lives as we're doing this. So one of the practices that we use in our New Thought philosophy is our spiritual mind treatment. And spiritual mind treatment is all about setting those intentions for how we want to live. We begin to create our prayer around how it is we want to experience the world around us. We affirm and we embody those qualities that we're wanting to have in our lives. So intentional living is about pausing and reflecting and then aligning our choices with our highest good. So first we have to stop and we have to pause. We have to look at what's happening in my life right now and reflect upon that and see how any thoughts that I might have had may have been contributing to that idea. Speaking of balance, early on in my life, I was not known for my grace. My parents put me in ballet lessons, hoping that they would find a little grace there. It really didn't take. We went to bowling after that. But you have to be able to reflect on what it is that you're wanting to experience there, and then align yourself with it. Align yourself with those thoughts. And so what that means for me is that whenever thoughts come up that are contrary to balance, I do something about those. I do a spiritual mind treatment. I find an affirmation. I reflect on that in my head. What is it I'm believing here that's causing me to feel like I'm off balance? And so I reflect on that. I pause, I reflect, and then I try to align myself back with those spiritual truths. So things that you can ask yourself when this happens to you, when you're trying to live intentionally but you're seeing other things come up, you can ask yourself, am I acting from love or fear? It's a big difference in there. If I'm acting from love, I'm remembering that I am one with that presence of the divine. But if I'm acting from fear, I'm thinking there's some kind of separation between me and spirit. There's something happening that's keeping me apart from my good. And then the other thing that you can ask yourself is, are you consciously choosing your responses? Are you consciously choosing your responses? Or are you allowing old patterns to dictate your behavior? In other words, are you just falling into the same old rut that we've been in before and reacting from that same place? So when you think about living intentionally, ask yourself those questions. Where is this thought coming from? Is it coming from that place of fear or love? Or is it coming from a place of intentional, purposeful behavior for this? The next thing that we want to do is look at what we believe. There are so many beliefs that are happening in our thoughts that we really are not totally conscious of. In Science of Mind, we call that race consciousness thoughts. They are things that permeate our world. And they are sometimes subtle, and sometimes they're those big 2x4 moments that you get hit up over the head with when they come into your experience. But there are beliefs out there that we're not really sure where they came from or why we've embodied that as the truth. I know in my family there were lots of beliefs. I come from a family of overweight women. I have a picture of my grandmother with her 7 sisters and her mother, and I swear the only difference is their height. They are all large women. So when I grew up, I thought, that's my genes. So for me to be overweight doesn't seem to be anything contrary to that. But is that something I bought into because it's the belief of society? I'm genetically predisposed to being overweight? Or is it the truth of my being? I've spent at least 60 of the last 64 years trying to figure that one out. What is happening here? Is this a belief that I've embodied in myself? Or is it actually there's some genetic component to it, and I just have to do the things that I need to do to compensate for that? There is a huge power in knowing what we believe and knowing where it came from and why it's operating in our experience right now. Again, going back to that, is this belief coming to me from love, or is it coming to me from fear? If it's coming to me from fear, there's something that may be not true about that belief. If it's coming to me from love, honestly, there's a place in us where love operates all of the time. And so when things are coming to us from love, we can be a little more gentle with ourselves. We can implement a little self-compassion. Doesn't mean we let ourselves off the hook, but we can soften our responses to ourselves as far as how that's going. In New Thought, We believe that our ideas, our thoughts, our beliefs are the blueprint of all of our experiences. We wouldn't be having the experience if we didn't somewhere in our consciousness think that it was a possibility for that to happen. And of course, we live in a world of infinite possibilities, so it doesn't surprise us that things like that can happen. But conscious living requires us to examine our beliefs and then ask ourselves these questions. Are these beliefs serving me right now? They may have served us really well in the past, but right now, is it serving me? I think about people who are afraid to be out and open to other people, be out and around and interact with other people. And there could be some very valid reasons for that. But, that was my cane. I was like, what in the world was that? I thought it was one of Joe's speakers or something blue. No, it was my cane. Okay. So anyway, there could be some really good reasons. We could have had experiences that have taught us, yeah, I need to watch out for myself when I go to this place, or I need to watch out myself if I'm by myself somewhere that I really don't feel safe in. So some of that stuff's really good. It serves us in a very, very good way. You know, you get that gut feeling that, like, yeah, this is not a place for me. That's serving us really well to keep us safe. But sometimes we latch onto that gut feeling and we keep ourselves playing small instead of necessarily playing safe. So look at those beliefs. Are they serving you right now? They may or may not be. And the second question is, do these beliefs align with the life that I want to create? Again, our thoughts create the experience that we want to have. So are these beliefs that I'm holding on to leading me towards having the life that I want to experience? Or are they keeping me stuck in the same old pattern? Conscious living is not about positive thinking or mindful practices alone. That's a component of it. But there's a lot more to that. Our beliefs have to align with spiritual truth. Now, here we talk a lot about spiritual truths. We have all of these words that we call God. We call them spiritual truths: love, beauty, joy, harmony, balance, abundance, peace. All of these qualities of the divine that we consider to be spiritual truths. They are unshakable. We can hold on to those and know that that is the truth of spirit. So are our beliefs aligning with that truth? If I want to experience peace in my life, then I need to take a look at my life and see all of the places where I'm not peaceful within myself, where things are being disturbed within me. I also need to take a look and see, are the people that I'm surrounding myself with part of that peaceful experience? Or are they contrary to that? You know, all of these things need to be examined. You know, as we begin to live with these spiritual principles like love, unity, abundance, creativity, we know that they are always operating in our lives, always looking for an outlet. That's what spirit does. It looks for a place for it to show up in the world. And so when we live in harmony with these principles, then our lives begin to naturally flow with greater ease and greater joy and more fulfillment. When we can feel that air around us and we know that it is the presence, then our life is unfolding a little bit more easily for us. Living in alignment means embodying spiritual principles in our daily actions. It's not just about Sunday when we come into church, or it's not just about when I'm taking a class, or it's not just about when I'm reading a book, but am I applying these spiritual principles to the challenges in my life, to the things that are bothering me? Do I apply those spiritual principles to that? You know, I guess it was sometime in July. I was very disturbed by what was happening in our country and thinking to myself, as a spiritual leader, what can I do about that? What can I do about that? How can I help our country and my congregation feel a little bit more at ease with the turmoil that's in the world? And I came across our founder's, Ernest Holmes' Prayer for My Country. And I read that, and then I brought it in and read it for our benediction that week. And then I was moved to ask our ministry of prayer, our practitioners and ministers, to write their own prayer for our country and use that each week. But what I thought was so amazing about that was the day that I read Ernest Holmes' Prayer for Our Country, I stepped off the platform at 11 o'clock, and I walked back that way, and our administrative assistant, Kaylee, comes walking up to me and says, Joe Biden has just stepped down from the presidential race. And within about 10 minutes, I went from being shocked to feeling very hopeful. That now that there was an opportunity for a little more balance in the election than what we were hearing. And you know, my experience of the political world since then has been one of much more ease, certainly a lot of joy and hope for what is possible in our country. And so for me, that was like a almost instant manifestation. I do the prayer, I set the intention, do the prayer, walk off the platform, and boom, there it happens. You know, so as we set ourselves out to do something intentionally, then we begin to see the results in our lives as we begin to examine it and so forth. Sometimes we have to look a little closer for that, but all of these things that we use, these affirmations, these spiritual truths, they're not just nice statements. They're not just platitudes. They're not just words that we say. You know, we can have all of the wonderful affirmations in the world, but if there's no belief behind them, then we're just talking. We're just mumbling and talking. You know, we call that here at Centers for Spiritual Living, spiritual bypass. When we say these wonderful words, but there is no belief in them, there's nothing, there's no underlying faith, there's no truth that I've embodied within my own consciousness to make me feel that there's some truth in that. And so our thoughts are creative. Our thoughts are always creative. And when we align our consciousness with our thoughts, then things really begin to shift in our life. So the next thing we have to do, there's my affirmation one, I forgot to put that up. I just said that. Practicing the presence. So there have been several books. I think I've got a list of 4 different books that are entitled Practicing the Presence. One of them was written by Brother John, who also wrote The Dark Night of the Soul, and it's a very powerful book about how he moved through horrendous experience by practicing the presence of God. In other words, keeping God fresh in our mind, knowing that God is nearer than the air, closer than our hands and feet. Breathing in, I feel the Spirit. Breathing out, a prayer of thanksgiving. When we practice the presence, we keep ourselves in alignment with spiritual truth a little more easily. And things don't seem as difficult to us. Conscious living always invites us to be fully present in this moment. And so does practicing the presence. So it's practicing the presence as in spirit and practicing this present moment. In other words, keeping ourselves in the present moment. You may have heard a meditation technique called mindfulness. Mindfulness is pretty big out there right now. There's a lot of work being done around mindfulness. And mindfulness is about being fully present in the moment, staying fully aware of what's happening in us and around us, and then not reacting to it. That's the main part that can be a challenge there. Be fully aware of what's happening, and then do what the Buddhists call, have that practice of equanimity, where we don't react to whatever's happening around us. Practicing the presence is the activity of all of the saints and sages throughout all of history. That's how they became who they were. That's how they understood spiritual truth, was in whatever way it was worked for them, was practicing the presence. And there are lots of different techniques for doing that. Most of them involve meditation or contemplation or prayer. And so those are ways that we remind ourselves of the truth, feel that presence of the divine as it's moving in and around us, and know that that is actually the spiritual truth, not just what our beliefs are. Life is happening to us right now, and so we have to be fully present right now. Life isn't about what happened before, and life isn't about what's going to happen. Life happens right now. And if we can stay in this present moment, absolutely perfect right now, is there one thing that you need right in this second that you don't have? Everything is provided for us right now in this second. If I start to think about the future, then I start to get into that sense of fear. I don't know what's going to happen. If I'm in the past, generally I'm either angry or upset or doing something that I need to practice a little forgiveness for. That's what happens in the past. In the future, that's where we have fear. That's where fear lies. That's where fear lies. There we go. So living in the present moment. Conscious living invites us to be fully present every single moment. It invites us to not get caught up in the past or to worry about the future, but only pay attention to what's happening to us right now. In the present moment, that's when we can access our true power. There is no power in the future, and there is no power in the past. It is only present here in the moment. I love this quote here. This is from Eckhart Tolle, and I don't know why my names did not show up. Oh, it's on your screen. It's not on mine. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Eckhart Tolle says, the present moment is the field on which the game of life happens. The present moment is the field on which the game of life happens. As I said, it doesn't happen in the past or in the future. And by cultivating this presence, the presence of spirit and staying present in the moment, we become aware of our thoughts and our emotions without getting swept up in them. Again, we have that sense of equanimity where we are not reacting to them. We're not getting caught up in that. But the moment we move away from it and start thinking about what's going to happen next, we're getting ourselves into that sense of fear. Staying in the present moment is our power. And when we are constantly in this present state of the present moment state, we can consciously choose to respond in an affirmative and effective way in our life's situations. But again, if you start to think about what's happened in the past, then when your response can be triggered by a past experience. If you start to think about what might happen in the future, your response is often triggered by a fear that it's not going to be the way you want it to be. And again, mindfulness is about being fully awake in our lives, about perceiving, I love this, the exquisite vividness of each moment. Do you feel the exquisite vividness of each moment in your life? I have glimpses of it. Moments when we're almost ecstatic. It reminds me of Rumi dancing around his pole with that ecstasy coming out of him. We also gain immediate access to our own powerful inner resources for insight, transformation, and healing. If we can keep ourselves in that present moment mindfully, not reacting to what we're thinking or feeling, then we have an opportunity to heal whatever that condition is. We start to live our life from the inside out, instead of letting the outside dictate what happens inside of us. And when we do that, we allow our inner wisdom to guide all of our actions. We allow our inner wisdom to be the source of our answers. This is from John Kabat-Zinn in his wonderful book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, which is all about mindfulness meditation. He says, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. If I'm looking outside of myself, I may be imagining what's possible, but there's no oomph behind it. There's nothing there that's going to make it manifest in my life. But if I look inside to my own heart, to my own beliefs, to my own consciousness, there's a place of power there which I can bring about change in my life through it. It's from this place of stillness inside of us that we become more aware of the guidance of spirit within us. It's that place inside of us where we can be still and know, where we can hear that inner voice, where we can ask those deep and profound questions and actually get a response, actually get an answer from spirit. So living in alignment with spiritual truth. It's not just about those positive thinking, about being mindful all the time. It's also knowing those spiritual truths and allowing yourselves to live from them. If I'm caught up in a situation where I'm somehow feeling a lack. Maybe I've got some kind of financial problem going on, and I start to think that this problem is bigger than any solution I can come up with. Well, guess what? The problem becomes bigger and more difficult to solve in my life. But when I can remember that I live in a world of complete abundance, and all I have to do is look outside and remind myself, look at the trees, the thousands and thousands and thousands of leaves on the trees. If I look at the rocks around this area, immense numbers of rocks. If you look at the size of the mountains, the enormity, the vastness of that, and to think that each one of those mountains is made up of tiny little particles of rock and sand. We live in a world of complete abundance. And if I can keep my mind on that, it gives me a place for solutions to the other problem to come through. But if I'm stuck thinking about the fear of how am I going to pay this bill, then that's where I stay. I stay in that fear. When we live in harmony with these principles, our life becomes easier. It flows better. We feel more joy and certainly more ease. Now, living in alignment means that we embody these principles in our daily actions. I can't just say, it's all good, it's all God. I have to have an embodied experience of that. I can't just say, I am powerful, if I've never felt powerful in my life. To me, those are just empty words. I have to have the embodied experience of it. I'm sure sometime in most of our lives, we have felt the immense power of love. If we can tap into that power whenever we're seeking to bring more love into our lives, and not isolate it to what we think love should look like, but be open to it in all ways, then we can have a greater experience of love in our lives. Opening ourselves up to it, embodying that truth, tapping into the times when you felt it. Is there a time in your life when you have felt such joy and you want to experience more joy? Then remember that time. Remember the feeling and set the intention to bring about more of it into your experience. The art of conscious living is about consistently bringing our thoughts, words, and actions into harmony with higher truths. Bringing our thoughts, words, and actions into harmony with spiritual truth. Those higher truths, those ideas that we hold firm. Spend enough time working with those ideas until you have an embodied experience of them. Until you have that embodied experience, sometimes it's hard to know what it is that you're actually feeling in those situations. But as I often say, once you know, you can't unknow. Once you've had that experience, you can't unlearn it. It becomes so solid within us that all we have to do is remind ourselves of that and tap into it when we're looking for it again. By aligning with these spiritual principles, we are co-creating a life that is wonderful, a life that is rich, a life that is deep, a life that is fulfilling. And when we create a life that is fulfilling for ourselves, then it cannot stay just within ourselves. It spreads out into the world around us. When we see people who have caught that feeling, and we think to ourselves, I want what she's having, then we know that there's something there. And sometimes being in that other person's presence is enough to remind us of that. Sometimes it's taking a class or reading a book or going to see a practitioner for prayer. Sometimes it happens in a meditation. And a meditation can change your life dramatically. When you have that aha moment, that cosmic 2x4 up against your head. If you've never felt that, trust me, that's exactly what it feels like. It's a body-jarring feeling when all of a sudden a realization hits home. Lining ourselves with spiritual truth, living life intentionally, is a way that we can create that wonderful world that we're anticipating or experiencing. Many of us are very, like I was at the beginning, many of us are very content in just where we're at. But if you have a longing inside of yourself for something more, or something greater, or you're experiencing something really good right now and you just want it to continue, then start to do some work around that. The first thing you can do is go to see one of our practitioners after service. Right over here across from the hall, they offer prayer. If you're having trouble with something, they'll help you know the truth about that. If something's fabulous in your life right now and you want it to continue, they'll know the truth of that too. It's a powerful practice. Keeping yourself aligned with spiritual truth, living intentionally, living on purpose, doing these spiritual practices that we know change our world will change your world too. All right, let's take this into prayer. I'm going to invite our spiritual practitioners to stand and surround us. These beloveds spend a minimum of 4 years in training so that when you are faced with some kind of a challenge, they can be there to know the truth for you. And here's the magic that people don't always tell you about. If you take one step towards God and ask for prayer, then Spirit takes 1,000 steps towards you. But you've got to make that first effort. All right, our prayer is called spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. It has 5 stages. In the first stage, I describe the presence, Spirit, God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. In the second stage, I affirm that we are one with it, that the presence of the divine resides right at the heart of our being. In the third stage, I speak spiritual truth about whatever the topic is that I'm praying about. The fourth stage is gratitude, because as Meister Eckhart always says, if all you say is thanks, that's enough. And our last stage is called release. We know that if everything we've said up until now is true, then all we have to do is let it go. Let go and let God. So I invite you to turn within, however you're comfortable doing that. I close my eyes and take in a deep breath. And so right here and right now, I know that there is only one power, one presence, one divine, creative love intelligence that has brought everything into existence. I know this one goes by many names and shows up in an infinite number of forms. It doesn't matter what I call it or how I see it. I simply know it. And I know it as a power, as a presence, as a place of peace and love and joy and harmony and balance. I know that that divine grace moves everything, keeps the stars aligned and the planets turning. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it. I know that that creative love intelligence brought me into existence to experience life through me, uniquely and perfectly, just the way that I am. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for everyone. For we are all a unique and divine manifestation of Spirit. A place where Spirit shows up as love, as peace, as harmony and joy. We are that place where God shows up. And so knowing this truth, I speak my word right here and right now. I know that our lives are aligned in conscious unfoldment. And I know that as we spend time and recognize that presence within us, we can feel it more easily. It is always there. We just have to be quiet enough to feel it. And we have to be brave enough to go within and seek it. For the heart of the divine is beating through us right here and right now. It is manifesting itself in, as, and through each one of us to experience life in a way that it can only do through each individual. And so I just simply give thanks for this knowing. I'm so grateful to feel it. I'm so grateful to see it operating in my life and in the life of this community and all those around me. And I release this word into that creative, conscious intelligence that heals all, that perfects all, that is all. I let it go, and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.